Welcome to Connected for Good, a community conversation that celebrates Loudoun County's changemakers. I'm Matt Bender, Director of Community Engagement at the Community Foundation for Loudoun and Northern Fauquier Counties. Connected for Good is made possible through a grant from the Claude Moore Charitable Foundation, and I'm here today with Stephanie Nerantzis, Director of Giving for Claude Moore.
Today, we're speaking with Reverend Daniel Vélez-Rivera, who everybody else knows in the community as Father Daniel, about leadership and how leading with purpose can transform not just an organization, but an entire community.
Imagine leading a congregation that looks beyond its walls, one that turns faith into action through service, education, and compassion. That's the vision of Father Daniel in St. Gabriel's San Gabriel in Leesburg.
We're thrilled to talk with Father Daniel today about his role as a community leader and Educando Con Amor, or Educating with Love, a free program serving hundreds of Loudoun children each year. His story is a powerful example of what happens when compassion meets action and how his leadership is creating real, lasting impact.
Father Daniel, welcome to Connected for Good.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We've been gearing up and excited for this conversation today. Just kind of get started, why don't you share a little bit about yourself? You know, I know that your career began in the tech industry and now you're a pillar of the local faith community. So how exactly does that happen?
God?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest, and fast forward almost 40 years later is when I went to seminary. But I was always active in my faith community, my churches. For me, it was a constant. And I went to the Episcopal Church, or became an Episcopalian, more than 30 years ago. My spouse took me there on a date, and this was in Massachusetts. And I came to Leesburg, already a priest, 13 years ago, and became San Gabriel's vicar priest then, and have continued building on what I brought from my past and creating into the future. And I say that because, as a technologist, as someone who was in the tech world, as an entrepreneur, church is also entrepreneurial in that we're bringing people together with a purpose to build something. And from my faith tradition, you're building kingdom. And how do you build kingdom? Well, with things like Educando Con Amor, with programs like Educating with Love. These are programs that are serving other people. And as we all know, we are in a consumerist world, and what do you want? Well, someone serves and someone uses, and that's a model that works in faith communities just the same.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the entrepreneurial aspect of being a faith leader. I'd never thought of it like that.
Well, the church is a small nonprofit, right? And so what we have used at St. Gabriel's in that regard is that nonprofit status in order to do what we do best, which is justice programming. We call it justice ministries, and specifically through education. So I was raised by a dad who had a third or fourth grade education, and a mom who had a secretarial certificate. And for them, their two boys were, by golly, going to be educated with college preparation. And my brother became a lawyer, and I became an engineer. And for my parents, that was success. But what stuck with me was the power of education. Once you give education to someone, it cannot be removed. It cannot be taken away. And that sits in the back of my head every time we do an after school program or our summer camp, our 9-week summer camp programs. And yes, we do all these programs for free. Why? Because we want it to be accessible to people, to all people. And we focus on technology and arts. I was a technologist. I also used to, do some performance with music. But it wasn't about my interest. It's really about what the community needs. We live in Loudoun County, a center of technology, serving not only government, but industry beyond our Virginia. And so I believe that if we empower children to learn, that they can learn, we're building the kingdom.
So I've heard you talk about this a lot, how through your ministry and through Educating with Love, you're stepping into a void and you're providing a need to the community. Well, I guess is the main need you're talking about right now is education.
Yes.
Are there any other voids or needs that you're meeting through your ministry and the work through Educate with Love?
Yeah, I'll first say that what we're providing is education. It's really supplementary education, right? Because Loudoun County Public Schools does a great job with children. And so what we're doing is bringing new education opportunities and new areas of study. Not everyone in Loudoun County Public Schools, for example, has the opportunity to program robots or to learn how to fly a drone or to do digital art or to have cooking classes or to do theater or to do public speaking. It's not accessible to everyone. We make that kind of supplementary education accessible to everyone. And when I say everyone, our programs are in Loudoun County, and we offer them in Sterling, Ashburn, and Leesburg, and the surrounding areas of the county. So we make it accessible.
And how did you come about with this? I know you said, your parents drove your education, that you needed to be educated, and your philosophy now. Like you said, Loudoun County does a great job with the education. So how did you come about deciding this after school program and the summer camp was where you were going to step in that process?
Well, I'll answer that question by referring to the changemaker title or award that I'll be receiving. One individual does not make change alone. Change happens in community. I depend on a community of people, whether they're people of faith or not, people of any religion. They are part of the community that make it possible for us to provide education with love, Educando Con Amor. When we talk to children, the idea of technology and arts came about. Been building on that for the past 9 years. And in the last 3 years, we launched a summer camp. The summer camp is 9 weeks of camp. Every child has up to 2 weeks of free camp. They're children whose parents they work 2 or 3 jobs, and don't want their kids at home alone during the summer. And it is not daycare and it's not babysitting. It's real education. And kids are learning things that also engage them, things that are fun. And while they're having fun, they're learning. And it's not just learning a subject matter, but it's life skills. They're learning how to interact with others. They present their projects to one another, or they cook. And when they cook, they're cooking for their peers. Our volunteers are change makers because they're facilitating this. We can't run the program without committed volunteers and staff. So everyone is facilitating change.
And is it safe to say that I know it's free to everybody, but for a lot of the students, children who do participate in your camp, going to after school program, summer camp in Loudoun County is very expensive and it's hard to get into. So for a lot of the children attending, this is an opportunity they wouldn't other have. They're being exposed to technologies and opportunities and experiences they would otherwise not have access to. Is that true? Do you believe?
Yeah, that is true. Most recently, just last month, we launched I'll call another division, if we want to use business terms, of community education, and that is through after school. We've always had after school, but our after school programs, which are also STEAM based, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, this time around we're providing reading literacy, and we're doing math tutoring. So reading comprehension, as some of you know, and math literacy in Loudoun County has exceptional scores, except that Latino children where English is a second language at the home, or any child where English is a second language at the home, they lag in their and
That is
so we're addressing that. We're providing this after school and now with the tutoring program where there are on average about 22 children 1 day a week receiving tutoring in English and in math.
I love that. And so many things I want to touch on. But first and foremost, as a a former educator. I spent 10 years in the classroom. I just want to talk about the value of what you're providing, because learning loss is real. You know, those summer months when students go home and they're not in the classroom and they might not be engaged and they probably aren't reading or whatever the case may be, you know, you're filling that void. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And another thing that you've really mentioned in terms of, you know, making progress and doing this work for the community is I've heard you mention a number of partnerships, but I want to dig into partnerships just a little bit deeper and what that means to you, and maybe share some examples of some partnerships from within the community that have helped you get this far and that can help you progress in the future.
So I'm a fond believer in ask and you shall receive. And so that's part of my faith tradition also. It's like if you have a need, um, ask for help. Ask for help to be able to provide something for someone else. And rarely do people say no. Uh, One of the blessings of that I have is I've been in Leesburg in the Loudoun County community for 13 years, and during COVID, we were entrusted by Catholic Charities and our local government to help people be able to pay rent if they were infected or affected by COVID. And we said yes in the same way that I say yes to, you know, Educando Con Amor, with educating with love. If you have an idea and you have the oomph to put spirit behind it and bring people to help you, because it's not a one person show, then let's do it. So that happened with during COVID with rental assistance, and then even during COVID, we were providing after school programs virtually. So again, people knew that St. Gabriel's was behind this community education programming throughout Loudoun County. We partner very closely with Loudoun Hunger Relief, with the Free Clinic, with the Arc of Loudoun, with name an organization, a nonprofit organization in Leesburg, and we have ties to them one way or the other, whether it's related to educating with love or related to another program and ministry. For example, we do food support. We don't have a food pantry because we have Loudoun Hunger Relief, but we serve people that live at Shelter House once a month. And so we pull people in to serve others. It's just part of the ethos and the theology of St. Gabriel's. Before, it probably is augmented by the fact that we don't have our own church building. And so we are, in few words, forced out into the community to do the work of God. We don't have four walls that contain us. What I always say is we don't talk about God, we're doing God's work. And that is firmly our ethos and our direction as an organization serving others.
So
That said, this past summer we had over 160 children on a wait list for the summer camp, and
really,
we served over 600 children. The fact that there were 160 kids on the wait list that did not get a camp opportunity is not good.
no, that
That
isn't.
means that there is room for another St. Gabriel's type organization to provide free supplementary education programs like we do. And God knows there's room at the inn, but we don't have that yet. And one of the things that we have to be mindful of is continuing to provide excellent programming, but we keep on getting more and more applicants to do the work. We don't have a problem with getting volunteers and staff, thank God, to do the work.
Over the past decade, what have you learned about leading through times of change and uncertainty? I know with COVID you've dealt with it, but just the last 10 years has just been so much change in the county. And what have you learned about leadership through that?
Well, I'll just start from the personal level, coming from a question that you asked earlier. It's like, how do I, deal with so much of the changes that occur and all that happens in our community? A lot of that comes with my faith. And yes, I rely on my faith to do what I do. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm a high energy guy. I follow my dad's footsteps in that. Dad never was sitting still. He was always engaged doing something. And I learned a lot about community service through my dad and my mom. But I rely on my faith, and I really rely on the company of others. I'm an extrovert, as you can tell from this conversation. And one of the things is I rely on people that I trust to walk alongside me. Again, the people that I trust are also those change makers. I'll have conversations and I talk from the heart. I'm not, sort of covering up or shading the reality. If I'm exhausted, it's because I've been working hard. But if I'm exhausted, I share that with others and say, I need a hand. Can we get some help? And that is primarily how I sustain myself, with God and with the company and help of others. The last 10, 12 years, I've been here 13 years, there has been a lot of change and there hasn't. I remember when I first came to Leesburg, one of the first meetings was at the Ark of Loudoun when they were on the Paxton campus. And it was with the then mayor, and I had already been in the community maybe a year, and this conversation about sort of the one-stop shop for community services came up back then, and we still don't have it. We don't have one that is effective that serves all people. Can it happen? Well, I've seen it happen in other communities. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
What do you think the barrier is to that one-stop shop? I mean, because we have a very tight network of nonprofits that are willing to work together for almost any good initiative project. So what do you think the barrier is?
Marketing and communications. If I go to one of those meetings, and you know that I attend many of those community social network and social services meetings, I'm finding out about the programming of many of these organizations that I've known for years. So if I'm learning about a facet of your program offering, my first question is, so how the people needing the services learning about what you offer? And oftentimes, Stephanie, what I get is, people, well, we probably don't do the best job at at marketing, at spreading the word. So that has to change. That's an infrastructure change. And I think it needs to be a strategic focus in the community, in the nonprofit community service provider world in Loudoun County. That would be one of the issues. The best kept secret is not good. And we don't
Mhm.
intend to keep secrets, but how we market our programs, and this is a challenge with many nonprofits because they have limited staff, how we market our programs and let people know exactly what the requirements are, exactly who qualifies, especially who doesn't qualify. That kind of information in multiple languages is very important.
So I think what you're describing is some sort of family navigator, some sort of liaison person or people that, in addition to advertising services, be a focal point for any family to come in, say, this is what we need, and have that person or organization help them navigate the processes to get those needs. Is that what you're kind of is that what you're thinking is the,
Yeah, and that they be that central point of networking, almost in so that model of I have a case management model. I
Mhm.
know that has changed over the decades, case management. But if you know all of the needs of an individual, then you could farm out to the organizations around you. And that is missing in our community. I'd like it to be studied and discern, strategically, is this something that can be implemented, and then figure out who can do it so that all the social services networks can benefit from that networking.
So where you see this in other communities, and you said you've seen it work. Have you seen it at Is it at the government level that's doing this, the local government level? Is it at the nonprofit levels providing this sort of networking, clearinghouse service that you're describing? Like, where have you seen it work and kind of describe where it sits?
Well, I saw it work when I was in Massachusetts. There was a nonprofit organization funded in part, not 100%, but funded by federal government resources, and it was a community health organization. It wasn't medical health, it was public health. And they did a great job incorporating sort of I'll call them the departments of need. You asked earlier what kinds of needs other than education. There's needs for affordable housing. There's needs for medical access to medical care. There's needs for job placements. There are a lot of needs in the
Mm-hmm.
Loudoun community, and this organization sort of created over time an an a corporation, a nonprofit organization that addressed the silos under one roof. And people would not only be referred internally to their programs, but externally to the providers beyond them. And I always say that, I'm part of the public health fabric of Loudoun County. People say, yeah, well, you're a church, you're part of the spiritual part of it. And it's like, and now with education as well. So we're part of this fabric. We just have to have a tighter weave in order, in my opinion, using that metaphor, for the fabric to be strong. I feel that the fabric has holes in it. Let's just use the reading comprehension and math needs of K through 3, really K through 6 kids in
Mm-hmm.
the county schools. So those are holes in the fabric that need to be somehow tightened and mended or created. Documented.
As you mentioned earlier, Father Daniel, you've been named our Changemaker of the Year. My question is, what does that mean to you to be a change maker? What about that word taps into the work that you do, Changemaker?
It really means community. I know that the award is given to an individual, but that's not how I perceive it. And that's what I will say when I'm awarded. Change does not come about with one person. It just doesn't. And so I know that one of the gifts I bring to the table is networking. It's learning how other people do what they do, enhance what others do with different options, in our case with community education. Change for me really is community. I often hesitate to call a church community. Some organizations say our family, our church family. I don't use that language because families can be great and can be terrible. Families can be functional and dysfunctional in the same breath. So I always refer to our faith community, and communities are as vulnerable as individual families with with one or the other, the positive and the negative. But the fact that we talk about a community is engaging all of the change that happens when you offer possibility. What we offer in possibility, as I said, for the kids to learn, they're changing their future. For teenagers to teach, they're changing the future of others and they're learning. The parents, they see what's happening, what's being offered, and they have more hope. They are changing as well. And again, the programs that we offer aren't just for underserved children, they're for everyone. Why? The kingdom is diverse. There's everything in the world and everyone in the world. And we don't specifically serve one demographic or a cultural group. What I have helped our staff and volunteers always to focus on is the whole, the all, not just silo.
What gives you hope, both dealing with youth in your ministry and the communities? Like, what what makes you happy with that you're seeing other than these great opportunities you're providing? Is there anything you see that gives you hope and makes you happy?
Yeah, I'm a feet in the street kind of priest. I always wear my uniform. I'm out in the community and I call it the uniform because just like a doctor, nurse, a healthcare provider wears scrubs, sort of what they do. They're in healthcare. Your mail deliverers, they wear a uniform. Your law enforcement people, they wear a uniform. So I wear a uniform for people to know that the church, the person of faith, is part of the community. And one of the things that I love about feet on the street is, for example, this summer we had a recently migrated child from Russia who was referred to us by LCPS. She was a kindergartner, I think, rising into first grade, and the child knew no English. He's recently migrated, a Russian child. And I asked our director, Eva Maria, and I said, so how are we going to do this? And,
Yeah.
Eva Maria's a Pied Piper. She's the one who she can get volunteers to do absolutely everything and anything. And she said, we've got this. The kids will teach one another. We have enough, staff people to make sure that the child is not isolated, that they're going to be engaged, and that they're going to learn. And at the end of, I think she was there for 3 weeks. At the end of her 3 weeks, as I was saying goodbye at the last day of her camp, she comes to me and said in Russian, and her mother translated, well, the next time summer, when I come here next summer, I want you to learn some Russian. And I'm like, that gives me hope.
Yeah.
She felt comfortable enough to say that. She felt engaged enough to continue to be part of it and she was the only child, that, we're sort of like a no cell phone environment in summer camp and in our after school. But obviously we needed a way to communicate with her, and the apps allowed us to do that until she could engage a little bit more freely. That gives me hope. Si se puede, with God all things are possible. And that is another one of my mottos. Si se puede. Yes, we can. And with God, all things are possible.
That gives me hope too. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing. Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
You want some fun, light questions? Okay. What's your favorite Loudoun community event?
Christmas parade. I love the Christmas parade. And I love the Christmas parade also. St. Gabriel's in the past has had a float, and it's just fun, and we have carolers, and it's a multi-generational event. So the kids or families can be on the float if they don't want to walk, and little kids, well, they always want to walk and, throw candy. So I think that's a great way to see all of the community out there also. So the diversity of Leesburg, and to have some fun.
Yeah. Well, I have to agree with you. That Christmas parade is awesome.
It's a fun event.
Okay. So where is your favorite place in Loudoun to get a cup of coffee?
It changes over time, interestingly enough. So I am a coffee drinker. I'm a caffeine person. And even this afternoon, I'm going not for the first time, but actually, I think now it's the third time to Shake and Bop's Botanical Cafe. Shake
Well, I've
and
been
Bop,
wanting to go. Mhm.
it's a small coffee shop. I'm a plant person. They have plants around in all the tables, and I think you can buy them, but it's also intimate. And so right now, that's my favorite.
And then what is the one must-see place in Loudoun if you're visiting from out of town?
You know, you have the courthouse right in the center of town,
Mm-hmm.
and it is part of the history of Leesburg. So if someone starts there and then wanders, they're going to get a good sense of the town of Leesburg.
Yeah. So basically the downtown Leesburg.
Yep. And if
Yeah.
they happen to be there on the hour of any hour, I love the bells when they ring on the hour. So it's part of the culture of downtown Leesburg.
Okay. Very good. Well, that's all I have.
Thank you for your time and your insight this morning, and even more importantly, your leadership in our community. So thank you again. I also want to say thank you to anyone who's listening, and to remind everyone that every act of generosity, every partnership, every story of connection strengthens this community that we share. Follow and subscribe wherever you listen, and until next time, stay connected for good.
Peace.
Peace.
Powered by Pounce Solutions.